What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to be installing Melotti triple clamp and Bonamici clip-ons. There are two main reasons why I'm doing this install. One is I believe the Melotti looks beautiful. It completes the look of the bike, so I'm doing mainly for aesthetics. The second reason is that the Bonamici clip-ons, which I also installed on my RSV4, are longer. And because they're longer, it gives you more leverage on turns. So it basically makes the bike feel more agile because you have more leverage during turns. Now the downside to that is because the clip-ons are longer, it's a little more difficult where you're in the tuck position on full speed. It feels a little awkward because it's too long, but it's a hit and miss. Do you want more agility or do you want to be able to be tucked more tightly in and have better top speed? Well, for me, it's looks and better agility. So let's go ahead with the install. Okay, you can start with whatever part you want. I will choose to start with the triple clamp first, and I will remove the steering stem with a 26mm and a breaker bar. I'm going to turn the steering bars all the way to the left because that's where it's going to turn. Put pressure here. And there's a washer underneath. We'll keep this. Actually, keep both, but I'm going to replace this with the CNC, so I'll keep the washer. Next step for the triple clamp, I'm going to remove this 6mm hex that's right here. And there's one more on the other side. Okay, there are two more screws in order to be able to lift the triple up. And there's one here under the clip-on on the left side and one on the right side. So you'll see it right here on this spot. And it's a 5mm hex that goes, it says right there. The reason I'm starting with the triple first is because I want to make sure I can actually remove the ignition, because the ignition has a safety screw, and if you cannot remove that safety screw, you won't be able to remove anything else. So I'll start with the triple and make sure I can remove that first. There you go. And we have one more 5mm hex from the other side. Next step, I'm just gonna remove the triple one by one, left and right, from the forks. There you go. And the reason I remove this first is because we have one screw here, which is a 5mm, I believe, and then one here, which is the safety screw. And I'll have to figure out a way to remove this. So it's actually a 6mm to remove this screw. 6mm hex. Okay, so the 6mm hex is removed, but I also removed the safety screw. I am not going to show how I removed it for safety reasons. If you're mechanically inclined, it's going to be very easy for you to figure out how to remove it. I just don't want to publicly show how, because there's a reason why this is made with safety screw not be able to be removed easily. Next step, I'm going to continue with the bar ends. These need a 6mm hex, but you'll need a longer one to go inside. Easy to remove. And you're going to repeat the same process on the other side. Basically, you see the hex is right in there. Once you put this through, you control from here. There's no screw. Threads are on the bar end. Okay, I'm gonna remain on the left clip-on. Basically, I'm going to remove the grip. I'm not going to reuse it. I have no grip, so I'm going to cut them. But at the same time, make sure you lift this, because under here, you have the screw for the traction control selection. So make sure when you cut that, you don't cut this under there. So it's gonna go by here. Just cut the whole thing. Open it there and just remove it like this. Next step, with a 3mm hex, I'm going to loosen this bolt from the traction control selector. There we go. Now this is loose, we're just gonna leave it in place. Then I'm going to use an 8mm to loosen the clutch lever. Just loosen it for now, just so it's loose enough like this. I'm not gonna remove it yet because we need to remove the entire clip-on out first. Now with 6mm hex, I'm going to loosen this bolt, the clip-on bolt. Now the clip-on is free to lift up, so we can remove the controls. There you go. And the reason I'm removing the clip-on first is because I want to have easier access underneath here for the controls to remove them from the clip-on. Okay, so for the control switch, you will need a T25 right in there, in here. All right, that was easy. There you go, T25. And this is why we loosen up the clutch. Now we have removed this screw from the controls and the traction control screw. Everything is loose, so all we have to do right now is grab the clip-on, grab everything from here, and just push them out. All the way. And just there you go. And left clip-on is removed. Now all we have to do is take the new clip-on and reinsert all these controls. Okay, so I did some test fitting, and basically on the new clip-on, this is where this is going to go, the clutch and the controls, and then the traction control. The problem is that this one works with friction. Basically, you put the screw back here, you tighten it, and then this creates friction on the clip-on. For some reason, the new Bonamici clip-on is slightly thinner, so the friction is not enough. So what's happening is this is rotating on the clip-on. To mitigate this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit of duct tape on the clip-on, on the spot where this will tighten in to hopefully make it tighter. Okay, you're going to cut a piece of duct tape, just about finger, 2 fingers long, and you're going to start with a clutch first. Okay, the reason we're starting with the clutch first is because if you add the duct tape on the clip-on, the clutch won't go through. And then add the control too, and also add the traction controls, and then push it all in. And then what we're going to do is we're going to make this space here for the controls right there. I'm going to add it right over here. This will create a little more thickness to pass the controls. Just push it all in, and also just one tip, in order to make it easier to go through the duct tape, loosen this screw here. It's just a Phillips head. Loosen it just a little bit so you can open this plastic over here, because when this is completely tight, it doesn't go through the duct tape. So loosen this too, retighten, and now we can add this screw underneath the T25, tighten in place, and now it's not going to be moving. Okay, now we're going to take the T25 and insert it underneath right there. We're not going to tighten it completely, we're just going to put it in place because we have to readjust the controls after. There you go, just tight enough so it stays in place while you can still rotate this So we're not going to tighten any of these yet because we need to put the clip-on in first. And once we have the clip-on in, we're gonna leave the clip-on loose too, because we need to put the triple clamp, find the right position for the clip-on where it's going to go, and then we have to tighten everything. So we're gonna leave everything loose for now. Now for the right side, we're gonna start with a 5mm hex. We're gonna loosen the brake lever. Just loosen them, just right there. Don't remove them yet, because we need to remove the master cylinder reservoir right here, because we need to remove it all as a whole without spilling it. To do that, you will need a 4mm hex for this, and underneath here there's a nut that it's 10mm. Just gonna put it under there, 4mm there, and loosen it. There you go, there's a nut. So we're gonna remove this up, but before we do this, we're going to use duct tape to hold it in place so it doesn't spill. Right there, and at the same time, I'm going to remove these. This is removed. Now we can lift this up here, and it comes off all together. And we're going to place it just here on the side, right there, and there. There you go. That way this remains leveled. There you go. And we don't get any bubbles inside the brake line. Now that the brake is safe on the side, we're going to remove this 6mm hex for the clip-on. And again, the reason we're doing this is so we make it easier to go underneath and remove the controls. Okay, now you're gonna flip the clip-on, and underneath here there's a T25 right here and a T15 right here. So T25, T15. I'm gonna start with the T25. There's a T25. Now we're gonna remove the T15 from this. T15 is right there. There's Torx. There you go. That's the T15. So now we should be able to remove the entire clip-on off. All right, there we go. And let's bring the Bonamici clip-on in. Next step, we're gonna get the Bonamici clip-on. Put the kill switch in first, then the throttle. Just push it all in. Now for these two, I already did a test fit. The throttle, once you tighten it with the Torx screw, it stays in place. The kill switch does not, which means we're going to need to use duct tape, just a little piece, just like we did for the left handlebar, to make it tighter. Right there, we're gonna use the brake just to check the distance. We need about this much of a piece of duct tape, and we're gonna place duct tape right here. Right here. This will make this a little tighter as we pass it through. Right there. This will be exactly here. Perfect. Okay, so now that we have found the position, I'm just going to remove the clip-on, only to make it easier to reinsert the screws underneath. Just one and here too, just to place them just tight enough to stay in place. It still rotates. This is what you want, and then you're gonna screw it underneath later. There, just tight enough to be able to position to where we want, and then we can reinsert
the clip-on. And now we can go underneath and tighten both once we find the position that we want this to be. Okay, next step will be to install the triple clamp. I mean, look at how good this looks. But of course, I'm not going to install it yet because we need to insert the ignition. Now, for the ignition, the Melotti triple clamp provides 2 screws, one longer and one shorter, because you see here there's a difference in height. I actually also purchased a safe screw. Basically, it's this one. So what happens with this replaces the safety screw. Once you insert it in and you tighten enough, it just breaks. It breaks off, and this is what you're left with. I'm not going to start with this. I'm going to install the 2 screws first that Melotti provided, just to be in the safe side in case I need to remove the ignition for some reason. Maybe I need to retighten something. So I'm gonna start by putting this on the side, install it with the screws that Melotti provided, and then once everything's done, I may remove one of these screws to replace it with the safety screw. Okay, we're gonna take the ignition and we're gonna pass the screw in first, right there. And the next thing we're going to do is take this spacer, pass it through here. Right there, don't tighten too much because we have to place the other one from the other side too. Pass it through there. We also need to pass a spacer. I know it's difficult to show it what I'm doing because everything is very tight in here. This is also 6mm hex. I'll take the ratchet to tighten them. Right there and right there. All right, okay, now that these are both tight, we're going to insert the triple inside. And the reason we're doing the triple first is because we have to place the triple where it sits so we can lift the clip-ons on where they touch the triple. Make sure you place it, and the rubber mallet right there. And I'm going to also place CNC. Don't forget the washer. I'm going to tighten this now because I want to have this in place so I can lift the clip-ons on. I'm going to tighten this, but I'm not going to torque it yet. Okay, for this you're going to need a 28mm 12 point to tighten this. Just enough, just tight enough to be in place so you can secure the triple to lift the clip-ons on. So the triple clamp also has a 6mm hex here and a 6mm hex here. I'm going to tighten these two, but I'm not going to torque them yet. Just tight enough there, right there. So now it's time to tighten the clip-ons, but not tight enough because we want them to be able to twist them, because we need to find the position first before we even tighten the controls on. So what I'm going to do is, with a 5mm that the Bonamici uses, this is a 5mm hex, just tighten just a little bit right there, so they're tight enough that it holds it in place, but at the same time you can twist it. And once it's just tight enough, see, I can twist it with a little force. You need to lift it all the way up, just right there, all the way up, and tighten just a little bit. And what we're going to do with that is, from the front wheel, I'm going to turn and bring it all the way here. And the goal is to have the same space the stock clip-ons had, which was just enough space before the turn signal hit the tank. So we see now it hits, which means the triple clamp, the clip-ons has to go a little to the front. You find the sweet spot. Back and forth until you find the perfect position starting from the left clip-on. Also guys, don't forget to add blue Loctite just to be safe. So now that the left clip-on is at the desired position and these are tight enough but not torqued yet, I'm going to start bringing all the controls to the desired position. For the clutch, what I usually do is I bring it all the way down until the clutch adjuster hits the clip-on. That's the lowest you can ever go. So that's what I will go for. And then with the 8mm, I'm going to tighten the clutch. And then the next thing to do is I'm going to place my hand here and see where I want these controls. So once I place in the desired position, I'm gonna go underneath with the T25 and tighten that there too. This one I'm going to leave last. Why? This is the traction control selector, because this you actually need to drill into the clip-on to screw it, and I will leave this last and I'll show you how to do that. Okay, so I have the drill. This is a 1/8. I basically took this drill bit and I inserted it to the left clip-on from the stock clip-on, and it fits perfect, so I'm going to use the same size. Once I have this traction control position where I want it to be, I lifted up the clutch lever to give me some space, and from the other side I'm going to go here and drill a hole. Okay, now that the hole is in, we're gonna take the screw that was provided before, the 3mm hex. The 1/8 is so tight that I will need some effort to tighten this screw, which is a good thing because this is not going anywhere right now. It's perfect. Right there, perfect. Okay, now we can place the grip. I got the domino grips. I may change them because I don't like the fact that it says domino, but it is what it is for now. Just gonna place them in, and as you can see, they're not tight enough. Domino grips are too loose for this. I'm gonna have to figure out this out. Okay, so I just placed the stock one for now, even though I cut it, and I'm gonna figure out which grips fit the Bonamici clip-ons. Okay, now we're gonna return to the right clip-on. I already tightened these and I aligned it. The good part with the Melotti triple clamp is that it gives you lines over here, so you can actually see where to align both clip-ons. So now that is tight, but it's not torqued yet, what I'm going to do is I'm going to install the brake first right here. I'm gonna start with the lower one. I'll tell you why. Because the stock clip-on has a screw here to screw the reservoir. Because the Bonamici clip-on does not have one, we're going to use this, which we're going to bend down. So I'm going to insert it here, right there. So now we have to bend this down so we can come and match this height. I'm gonna use a pliers because it has to be bent and twisted at the same time. But to do that, we're gonna use this as leverage just to make sure it goes all the way down there. Right there. And of course we can readjust based on where we want it. Now that I'm thinking about it, instead of bending it more, I could potentially put this here so it goes lower. So I'm gonna try that. Okay, so I'll place this on the bottom to lower the height, and then we can replace this here. This part is threaded actually, so one part is not and one is. So the stock screw can actually go through here and be threaded in through here, and then we're gonna use the nut underneath. So we're gonna place it through here, thread it in, which is great because even if the nut drops underneath, this cannot be removed because it's threaded. Okay, but before we tighten this, we might have to make another adjustment based on the clearance. So, okay, it looks like it has to go just a little bit lower, but you get the point. Basically, once we readjust this a little lower, place a nut underneath it, the 10mm, and this is good to go. Okay, now that everything is in position, you have to find the desired position for the kill switch. And with the T25 and T15, go underneath, tighten them and put them in position, and this side is good to go. So now that everything is in place, I'm gonna start with torquing the steering stem and the two 6mm triple clamp screws. This will be 100 Newton meters and these two will be 25 Newton meters. The Melotti triple clamp does not include torque specs for these two, but I'm using the torque specs from the stock bolts of the RSV4 manual. So I'm gonna start with 100 Newton meters for this one. There you go, it's 100. And before I torque these two, I'm going to insert the CNC cap. So you have to torque this down first before you place the CNC cap, because you want to have the logo aligned. This is a 3mm X. So this is torqued down to 100 Newton meters. I'm gonna torque these to 25 Newton meters. And for the clip-ons, we have 2 bolts here and 2 bolts here. And Bonamici recommends between 9 and 12 Newton meters on the instructions. Between 9 and 12. Trust me, I wouldn't even go with 12. I would start with around 9 or 10 because these are very delicate and they can strip very easily. So start between 9 and 10 Newton meters for these two and these two. All right guys, install is complete and this looks better than I thought it would. What a difference, man. Let's take a look all around. Perfect. Okay, so I want to go over what I did exactly with these clip-ons, because the Bonamici clip-ons are way too long and I had to cut both sides with an angle grinder. I had to cut about an inch on each side, even with cutting out about an inch, because the end of the grip is where the Bonamici clip-on ends. I wanted to show you, based on the stock clip-on, the distance. Basically, your grip will be ending where the stock bar end was. So for reference, you know that you can actually extend the clip-ons, make them longer as long as your bar ends are. Now, where these Bonamici clip-ons were originally were exactly right here where this lever protector is. So you can imagine if I hadn't cut it, this level protector will be right here. This was way too long, and I can tell you, it doesn't matter how tall you are, this will always be too long. I think you will be forced to cut these clip-ons to a reasonable size. I'm happy because even though with cutting them, I technically still have a longer clip-on, because now, in reference to the stock clip-on, it will be as equal as me gripping on the side of the bar end. But instead of the bar end, now I have the grip. All right guys, if you have any questions, let me know in the comments. Also stay tuned because next mod will be red Samco radiator hoses. I think this is gonna make the bike look even better. In the meantime though, if you like the video, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one.